So yeah, all right, here we go. Harbor of Hope, sponsor. Harbor of Hope, theharborofhope.org. They are a foster agency in North Texas that services specifically the DFW area. However, they have resources available for people nationwide, if you call them. They have graciously become partners with us, and our goal is to funnel people to them in order to give a lost child a sense of family and a home to live in. Now, Harbor of Hope is an agency that provides positive opportunities to all people it interacts with, and it believes that children have the opportunity to heal and engage in meaningful activities within the community and their families. Harbor of Hope strives to make a safe environment for families and children and will take advantage of positive opportunities to support permanency goals and the overall well-being of the agency's clients. Now, Harbor of Hope provides child care services, treatment services to male and female children from birth through 17 and up to 22 if they meet specific eligibility requirements. Now, it's the agency's goal that foster families create strong working relationships with all members of the treatment team. And with that approach in mind, Harbor of Hope intends to create an environment for children that promotes healing and a healthy transition to permanency. Now, Harbor of Hope, Jamie Steiner, it's been great support to the podcast. Please show her some love. You can visit them at theharborofhope.org. You can also contact them on their website at theharborofhope.org/contact us, or directly by phone at area code 817-304-8207, or you can locate them in Denton, Texas at 100 West Oak Street, Suite 110. You can also go to the Street Warrior Radio, God, I can't speak today, streetwarriorradio.com website and click on the link for Harbor of Hope. It's going to give you a rundown of their mission statement, vision, etc. It has a link to episode 013 with Jamie Steiner, so you can find out more about what they do and links to how to get in contact with them. Also, TNT, Top Notch Tactics Security, Scurdy. They are a security company based out of Dallas, Texas, specializing in multiple different types of security needs. If you need more information about them, they are the provider of our fantastic, amazing audio equipment, of which we have a brand new microphone that we now can interview people in the studio thanks to them. You can contact them through us at this time. It's going to be info@streetwarriorradio.com. Shoot us an email if you'd like more information about security services or consulting. They're law enforcement owned, veteran owned, good guys. We know them personally. Great dudes. Give us a shout. We'll funnel your information to them and they'll get in contact with you. Also, Amazon click-through. Super simple way to support the podcast. If you so choose to do so, you can go to our website at streetwarriorradio.com. On the left-hand column of the page, at the bottom, there's going to be a little Amazon.com picture. You click on that, it'll take you to Amazon.com through our storefront. From there, you can do all your normal Amazon shopping, still signed in under your username, and do your shopping and get whatever it is you need. And a small percentage of that comes back to the podcast. It doesn't cost you a thing, only that couple of extra seconds to go to our website and click the link. So please do so. It helps keep us going, helps pay for website hosting fees and domain names and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 100% of that money goes back into the podcast, does not come to our pockets. Yeah, so time for music. This is Street Warrior Radio episode 027 with your hosts, Bigbo, and me, JC. Now, we have a very special episode. This episode today is going to be our interview with Bill Frady on Lock and Load Radio, which aired live on Tuesday, September 4th, 2018. We were guests on the show. He reached out to us and wanted us to come on the show. It was huge for us. We were really excited about it, very excited to talk to Bill and answer questions about the podcast. It was a little weird for us because, we're not necessarily in a position where we get interviewed on somebody else's show. So that was pretty neat. And it was a good deal. I felt it went pretty well. So you can be the judge of that. And here we go. Lock and Load Radio. Bill Frady.
Perpetually standing in the breach and always ready to stay in the fight. Coming to you from an undisclosed broadcast location. Presented by AR-500 Armor, the Armored Republic cometh. This is Lock and Load with Bill Frady.
500 Armor Radio Studio. This is a Lock and Load. Podcasts are at the tip of the spear when it comes to dissemination of information. There's so many of them out there right now, and there's so many really good ones. And in the arena of Second Amendment, it is one thing that is sort of not going to be deplatformed anytime soon. We might lose YouTube. We might lose Facebook. We might lose Twitter. But podcasts will still be out there. Joining me tonight from a very unique podcast, Street Warrior Radio. And we're just going to go by what he goes by because we're going to look behind the curtain in ways that I've been sort of curious about. Joining me from the Street Warrior Radio podcast is JC. Good evening, sir.
How you doing?
Okay, I don't hear him.
Can you hear me?
Hello. Now, JC? Yeah, I got you.
You hear me now?
I do.
All right, great. That was weird.
Well, no, it's just that's the whole thing about live radio. It's so much drama.
Right.
Yeah. Tell me about Street Warrior.
Well, Street Warrior Radio is a podcast with my partner Bigbo and I, who's here with me.
What's going on?
And
oh, hey, Bigbo, I didn't know you'd be here. Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically it's a podcast dedicated to life lessons that both Bigbo and I have learned through our time on the street as police officers, and through life, and kind of how we have dealt with different situations, different experiences, and hopefully we can translate those to other people who are possibly going through the same types of things. And through that, hopefully they can relate to that, and it'll help them in the process.
One thing about police officers, like the one who got my shooting mojo back for me is a police officer. He didn't get it back for me, but he sure did help me. And police officers since Ferguson, were you guys being vilified as much prior to Ferguson, or was I just missing something? Or since Ferguson, has it really gotten bad? Or what do you, in your jurisdiction, what do you guys find?
Well, it was kind of, I guess it depended on where you worked, really.
Right.
Probably officers now, like, I started my career in Dallas, Texas. And, most of the time or for a good chunk of the start of my career was in the southern part of the city, which demographically is predominantly African American and Hispanic. And it was kind of half and half reception as far as when you show up on a call or whatever, or when you interact with the public. You'd have some people that were against you and some people that supported you. I feel like since then it's kind of been it's kind of gone downhill in a lot of ways. However, one thing, sometimes out of tragedy comes great things. And when the July 7th attacks happened in Dallas, and the 5 officers were killed, including Brent Thompson, somebody that I worked with pretty closely.
Right.
It tended to change the attitude in our area for the most part, and I think it's pretty good for the most part. You know, Bigbo and I both work for the same agency, and we work in a smaller town that's connected to the larger Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. And I think overall in our area in particular, the attitudes are pretty good towards law enforcement. But I do know several officers in different locations, and some of them have it really bad, some of them have it really great. It just depends on kind of where they work. And I found that kind of in the larger urban environments, it tends to be a little worse for officers as opposed to suburban or rural areas.
Now, today, I sort of opened up a can of worms, and let's ask this to Bigbo since you're here, brother.
Yes, sir.
I saw where Colin Kaepernick is now the face of Nike, which is fine. I don't have an issue with the kid. You know, he went out there and he decided to take a stand on something based on perception.
Yeah.
Because I think he gets most of his information from the big magic box, and he believes it, and he's paying the price for this. But now he's now the face of the 30th anniversary Just Do It Nike campaign, and the caption under his picture, which they did a nice dramatic black and white of his zoom up of his eyes, believing in something even if you sacrifice everything. And the idea that this millionaire sacrificed anything is beyond my comprehension. I'm ex-military, so you know, I know about sacrifice, and this kid hasn't sacrificed. And I look at law enforcement; they've sacrificed and everything else. And I'm just half of the country seems to think this guy is going through the struggle. For you guys in law enforcement, when you see the taking a knee thing, does it insult you?
Well, I speak on this from, like, I also served in the military. And to me, that's his right. It's sort of, you know, when they tell you when you go and serve in the military, you're fighting for everyone else's freedoms. He has a First Amendment to do that if he wants to do that. If he wants to take a knee, if he wants to do that, he's not, you know, necessarily cursing at the military or being very disrespectful at the military. He could do it a different way, but that's the way he chooses to do his protest. I don't agree with it, but I don't necessarily have a problem with it. If that's how he wants to protest, if that's his choice, that's his First Amendment right to protest like that. That's his free speech. And I fought and I sacrificed for people to have that right.
I do too. Yeah.
You know, and I don't agree with it at all. But if that's what he wants to do,
perception.
Yeah.
And my perception of this is that he doesn't know you, he doesn't know JC, and he's out there making this statement. So yes, I did fight for the First Amendment and all this other stuff, but I also have a First Amendment, and I was just making the statement that, wow,
exactly.
And
I don't agree with him at all, and I don't agree with Nike's campaign to put him out there and make it seem like he's, you know, facing a struggle because he's lost a contract. But, you know, everybody's got to make money, I guess. They want to piggyback off something.
Sure. That's fine. They can do that if they want to. I don't really have an issue with it, but at the same time, somebody had an issue with me pointing it out, and that became a big old thing. I'm not a big Facebook fan, so.
Me neither. Trust me, I'm not a big Facebook fan either.
Yeah. Now, we're coming up on the first break. When we get back, I want to hear about the genesis of the podcast. And I want to, you know, police officers operate in a heightened state, more so than I ever operated in the military. And I mean, I was in during the Cold War, boys. So, you know, we thought the Soviet Union was a thing back during the Cold War. So, there was a little bit of a tension, but most of the time it was a party. You guys, on the other hand, you never know from moment to moment. So I want to talk about the genesis of the Street Warrior podcast, how this came about. And, of course, we definitely, as we come into the break, where's the website? Where's everything at associated with Street Warrior Radio podcast?
Well, the website is streetwarriorradio.com. And of course, we're on all the different social media platforms, so Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And all those, you can just simply either at Street Warrior Radio or search Street Warrior Radio in the search bar. And that's pretty much where to find us.
And of course, iTunes.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. We're on every podcast platform pretty much. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you're going to be able to pull our feed. iTunes, GooglePlay, Spotify, etc.
Are you guys having any luck with it? I'll ask you about this when we get back.
Okay.
I'll ask you about this when we get back. I just got on Spotify. I'd like to know what your opinion of that one is.
Okay.
We'll be right back. We're talking to JC and Bigbo from the Street Warrior Radio podcast, and this is Lock and Load. Tell me, guys, with the podcast, which podcasting is beginning to catch on as social media sort of goes left.
Right.
How are you guys finding the Spotify experience?
Well, it's funny. I looked at the Spotify, our analytics today for Spotify, and it's in comparison to things like iTunes and Google Play, it's really a very, very small part of our listenership actually looks at it listens through Spotify.
Right.
But overall, it's pretty easy for us anyway. Our host, our podcasting host, actually, takes care of most of the the Spotify stuff for us. So it's really not anything that I got to deal with. But Spotify's been, it's been okay. I guess it's cool that we're on Spotify. There's tons of people. I use Spotify personally.
Me too.
So I guess it's cool. I don't know. it's worked out, I guess, but it is a small part of our listenership for sure.
I don't know just exactly how do you guys use Libsyn?
No, we use Blueberry actually.
Okay. Libsyn makes that pretty easy.
Yeah.
To go these various places. As I would love. I may need to look at Blueberry at some point later on down the road, but that's also beside the point.
Right.
Anyway, how did you guys? I mean, at what point did you, JC, or did you, Bigbo, get out there and say, I think we ought to do a podcast about what we do?
I'll let JC take this one.
Well, okay. I kind of got into podcasts a couple years ago, and kind of had it playing in the background as I was working either my regular job or my extra jobs. And I started listening to podcasts like, the Tim Ferriss Show and Jocko's podcast. And as I started getting more and more into it, I started thinking, I spend half of my career teaching new officers how to be cops and putting off all the experiences that I've had, which have been a lot, action packed into a relatively short amount of time, 12 years, and all the things that I've been through. And I take those experiences and I put them on junior officers and help try to mold them to be better cops and to, survive the things that they may have to face. And I thought that, it's not just things that I've been through in my professional life. There's also a large rabbit trail of things I've been through in my personal life. And I thought, I could do this. I could get on here. I've got a past in music production and sound engineering and all that. I was like, I can do all this stuff. I can put this information out there and hopefully help somebody. So I went to Bigbo about it and kind of proposed the idea and was like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is kind of how I want to do it. And now, granted, it's evolved greatly. We're 26 episodes in, and it's evolved just, amazingly since the very first one. But I kind of threw that idea out at him, and he was like, yeah, let's do it. And then we kind of bumbled our way through the first several episodes, and kind of until we got ourselves, kind of a format, and that's kind of how it's been ever since.
I will tell you this: I have never met anybody. Now, I don't get out very often, but I have never met anybody that went to school to be a broadcaster that has turned into a broadcaster. So,
right,
broadcasting is something that is almost self-taught.
Sure.
I mean, this radio show began as a voicemail.
Oh wow!
Wow.
So I mean, it's podcasting though is fun, and it is amongst all the ways to get your word out. This is the one. You know, when I'm approaching a sponsor or something like that, I get out there and they're like, "Well, what's your social media like?" So I'll just tell them, "Well, social media is on the decline."
Right.
Because it is. I mean, Facebook is down 47% since 2016.
Yeah.
And then
incredible.
with the remaining posts that are out there, if you have a business page or a show page for Street Warrior Radio,
we do.
They're going to throttle that by 70, 80%. So they want you to boost it. And then if you get out there and boost it, I mean, I tried to boost an ad for underwear the other day, and they wouldn't let me do that because they sell guns.
Yeah, they're pretty. There's some sticklers over there. So it's kind of hard, that social media, managing that with the podcast. And we found from talking to other people that have podcasts and that have been successful in the type of area that we're successful in the demographic, they've told us just let it grow organically. And we found that has been the best formula for us, is letting it grow organically and getting the word of mouth. And, getting on your show is really big for us. And, we're hoping that that's going to trend us upward and get us into the right spot and get more listeners to our page so that someone can hear us. And, when people hear our show, they're always like, wow, that's really good. I can use that. Or you guys help me in this. And, people send us questions and we try to answer them on the air. And that's what this is all about. That's what our show was built on, was to give young officers some job experience just by listening to us, and some life experience, like, hey, we're not perfect. We're cops, but we've lived some pretty crappy lives before. So, here's our story. Hopefully it'll help you.
Yeah. And on top of that, it hadn't been just cops. We've had tons of people from across the spectrum reach out to us and say, wow, you guys have really changed, my perspective on police officers, or you guys have, what you said in this particular episode or whatever really spoke to me, and I'm kind of going through that right now. So it's that alone has kind of made it all worth it. Even if we were to never, we've been fortunate enough to pick up a sponsor here and there, but even if we never did and we never made a dime off of it, that makes it 100% worth it. It's just the feedback that we've gotten back from people. So it's been pretty awesome when it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it will come. And organic is, that's the thing about podcasting, is it is all organic. Nobody's figured out a way to game that system just yet. There's no automatic listens. There's no nothing. So
right.
You guys are really doing it the only way you can. And I'm fairly certain, most police officers, I would think, would be somewhat reluctant. Shall I say, to lay it out there like this?
Well, and there's a lot of factors involved in that too. You got, aside from the fact that, we've talked about this on our show about,
I tell you what, is this going to be a long answer because we're coming up on the next break?
It might be.
I know this. Well, why don't you let's talk about that? Why a police officer would be reluctant, and what makes Street Warrior Radio so unique. Anybody out there that's listening, podcasts. This show started as a podcast. Lots of shows start as podcasts. This is where people cut their chops, and these guys are picking it up. I saw them flitting across the horizon. I was like, oh, now that's interesting. That's a little different, and that's why I reached out to them. Go check them out. Street Warrior Radio Podcast. Available on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and every way out there known to man, and there's quite a few of them. Everybody that's getting podcasts knows. So
yeah,
we will be right back in about 5 minutes. Yeah. My guests are the JC and Bigbo from Street Warrior Radio Podcast. This is Lock and Load. 500 Armor Radio Studio. This is Lock and Load. Talking to JC and Bigbo from the Street Warrior Radio podcast. I just asked, now these two gentlemen are current active law enforcement officers.
That's right.
Giving you a look at what goes on behind, when the door closes on the patrol car, if you will, behind the glass. And I just asked them a question in the last segment about, aren't most police officers a little reluctant to sort of, lay that all out there and put it on audio and on the interwebs and everything? And I think JC was about to tell me, and then we had to go pay some bills. So anyway, please,
sir. So really, I think there's other cop shows out there, podcasts out there with either active or retired police officers, and what kind of makes our show a little bit different is we kind of push the boundaries as far as what we talk about. And this is why I think most officers would probably be reluctant to have something like what we have, in that there's department policy, there's perception, et cetera, that go with things that police officers do, both on duty and off duty. And I think we see tons of examples of that in the media, unfortunately. But we wanted the show to be very much a kind of what happens when two partners are in a car and nobody else is around sort of conversation.
Right.
Which I think makes it very unique and kind of goes off the rails sometimes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I think that the way our show is really, like I said, pushes those boundaries. And when you have those social constraints and those department constraints, it's why we don't use our real names. We use fake names for the show, and that was an agreement we made with our employer. And we don't mention where we work or anything like that. So that way anything that we might, crazy crap that we might say might not come back on the department. There might be any sort of negative perceptions. And I think that's probably the main reason why that most officers wouldn't probably go to that next level. Now you have your people out there like your, social media people like Mike the Cop or Officer Daniels, or those people that have taken it in a different format and do kind of some crazy things. But, most of those people are either part-time, or they're no longer full-time for the most part. And so there's really not a lot of, if they had to quit their free, reserve job, it wouldn't be like a big deal for them because they obviously have made a living out of it. But for us, we kind of have to toe a little bit of a line, but we do push the boundaries quite a bit.
Yes,
for sure.
Now, you made reference to the killing of police officers in Dallas, Texas. Was that a rough time for you guys?
Yeah,
it was. It's so close to home, and then, I had some personal connections to that. So, it was, I think it was difficult across the board for everybody.
Yep. And then we both have families, so, they worry about us because it's so close to home, and, we're going out there to work. I think me and JC worked the next night, actually, after that happened. So, there's a lot of stuff on our brain and a lot of stuff on our family's brain when we go out there that next night.
So when this happens in law enforcement, I've always wanted to ask this question, and you guys have worked with big departments, so I'm very curious about this. When this happens in law enforcement, do the higher ups learn from the mistake and try to implement policy and procedure where this is not going to be a repeat? I mean, like in one of the times when the guy was moving up on the other guy, he sort of did this. The police officer was too close to cover.
Correct.
And this guy's coming up on him, he jukes left, and the police officer can't really respond to that, and then he pops up behind him and guns him down. Did they take the time to teach the regular officer a little bit about fire and maneuver?
That is that's a good question. I would say it really depends on where you work.
Yeah.
And it's going the answer to that question is going to be very departmental specific, because we as a society tend to learn lessons but have a short memory, right? So stuff starts to, as things start to normalize, things start to go back to the way we've always done it. And I think across the board, there were lessons that were learned that were definitely taken away from, such as implementing body armor programs for, rifle rated plates, and definitely maybe sharpening some of the patrol rifle issues that were out there.
Right.
And specifically in that particular incident, there were a lot of communication breakdowns where you had officers that were literally trying to retreat to their vehicles in order to retrieve those items, which of course, by and large, we don't wear. And they were either denied by line supervision or levels above them, for whatever reason. And that's a whole nother, ridiculously long conversation to have. But I think, and there's a lot of dynamics to it, but I think overall, there was a positive that came from it in how law enforcement officers and departments, especially department administrations, respond to those sorts of situations and what the practices are. But I would tell you that as far as when it comes to training and tactics to deal with those kind of things, our industries definitely could be a lot better, for sure.
Well, I mean, the problem lies in the nature of the job, though, right? You guys aren't soldiers. You have to be psychologists.
Correct.
You have to be a problem solver.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be sometimes a role model. You've got so many different hats you've got to wear, so to get out there and be a fire maneuver infantryman is sort of difficult to do. It's very hard to translate. Do you guys ride in one-man cars or two-man cars?
One man.
One man.
One man. So you're not really even in a fire team where you can double up and start doing bounding.
Correct.
So it's very difficult to do the translation and everything. But at the same time, I would hope that your hires up would look at that and say, this is something good we're just going to have to do.
Yeah, and we're Bigbo and I are fortunate in where we work, simply because most of our administration actually comes from that area, that department. So the lessons that they learned have translated over to us, and then I'm a firearms and tactics trainer, so I took a lot of those lessons and studied them extensively. But I will tell you that despite the fact that that police officers have really become kind of a catch-all for a lot of different things,
Right.
a lot of things that police officers really have no business doing, but it's kind of become the standard, and we have to deal with all these different things from a noise complaint to a aggravated assault the next call to a whatever the next call, and there has to be this baseline level of understanding from the officer's perspective and from the admin's perspective that these things could kick off at any second. And it doesn't matter where you work, where statistically it may be less likely to happen in a very rural area, but these suburban areas that are connected to large urban areas, they very much run the risk of dealing with situations like that, because there's spillover all the time, especially where we work in a massive area of interconnected cities. Things spill over all the time, and these departments, they have to be prepared and they have to train for these sorts of incidents and have to have the mindset to be able to deal with those. And sometimes that's a very uncomfortable conversation for people to have when they're trying to project a, officer friendly sort of deal, within the department and the community. And that's a very uncomfortable conversation sometimes.
Yeah. Now, and we're coming up on the next break, so I'm not going to ask you this question.
Okay.
Because otherwise you'll start. So, the Street Warrior Radio podcast. You can tell right now, if you're listening to these guys right now, I can only imagine some of the stuff that they put out there on a regular basis. This is what would make this compelling listening. And for those of you out there that are out there and you feel the need to do the "Are we being detained" kind of thing, give these guys a listen and then cut them a break. They're just trying to do the job.
That's right. That's it.
That's right.
Talking to JC and Bigbo from the Street Warrior Radio podcast. This is Lock and Load. from the AR500 Armor Radio studio. This is Lock and Load. Talking to JC and Bigbo from the Street Warrior Radio podcast. I would imagine, when guys, when I have a bad day, I'm out there and I'm pitching, I'm trying to get somebody to let me broadcast at, SHOT Show or trying to get a new sponsor or something. And then I come off of that and I'm like, I had a really bad day.
Right.
And then I come in here and I do the show. And, now, do you guys, do you upload even at times when you guys are out there and you have some really raw emotion occurring?
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's been a couple episodes like that for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's been a couple episodes where, we've had it just a rough day, a rough week, and a rough month. And we're both like, you know what? Let's go put an episode out. And we put it out and we put it all there on the line and we talk about it. And, sometimes those are some of our most listened to episodes. And we really appreciate, fans for listening to those because that's really who we are. We're real humans too. We're real people who have real legit life problems. And it's not always guns and chasing bad guys and, woo, that was a great day. High five. Let's come back tomorrow. No, sometimes it's like, gosh, I don't want to be here today. And you still have to suck it up and do your job.
I often think that they see you guys and they see you rolling up and they see the uniform, but they don't understand that, a guy's wearing the uniform.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've had, me and JC have both had people be like, it must be nice just having a perfect life. And I was going through a divorce and hadn't seen my kids in 2 months. And I was like, you don't even know what I've been through.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure you guys have rolled up on domestic disputes that involve children and everything else, and I can only you guys married, have kids. I'm going to presume, or
yes, I do.
I have children.
So when you go into something like that, that has to be especially hard for just a normal human being, right?
Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Should people understand that police officers are normal human beings that are doing a job that nobody else really wants to do?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's important. And that's been one of the goals of the show, is to show that we use the things that we've had in our lives to help us empathize with people that we have to deal with from call to call. And I think for Bigbo and I and other officers that do that, and there's thousands upon thousands that do, that have had these life experiences, you can relate to these people. Absolutely. You can relate to, the call about an argument between a husband and wife, or a kid that's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, or a domestic violence situation, or a suicide situation, or whatever. You can, once you self-identify and you look at the things that are going on with you in your own life, you can step back and go, okay, how did I resolve that, and how can I help this person resolve that? Now, that may not be the answer, right? What worked for you may not work for another person, but you can definitely have that foundation there in those building blocks to be able to try and find a solution to whatever these people's problems are.
Right. As you guys go forward, how far are you hoping to take the podcast?
Nationwide. We want to be everywhere.
Well, I mean, you're worldwide, right?
Yeah,
now.
we are. We're actually
worldwide web.
We're listened to in 48 different countries right now.
Yeah.
I think
Djibouti, Africa.
That's right. And shout out to our people in the armed forces who listen to us on. Yep. But sky's the limit, really. There's no. We really don't have a set place we want to take it. Is we just want it to be successful, and we want people to find lessons from it and be able to apply those in their own lives, and that's really what it is. But if it has the listeners it has now, or it has 100,000 people an episode, that's either one's great for us.
Well, I think what I'd like to do with you guys the next time I have you on, if you want to come back on again, that is.
Oh, without a doubt.
Presumptions here.
Without a doubt.
I'd like to do a simulcast with you when you do your show.
Oh, that'd be great.
We'd love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you would like that, because my best friend around here is a cop, and he is he knows the ropes. He knows a lot of things and everything. And I don't really ask him about too much of his stuff and everything else because I don't think it's any of my business. But I think sometimes, especially today with this whole the problem I have with today is the Black Lives Matter, the thing, the idea that there is systemic racism within police, within the ranks of police.
Right.
And I know that's not the truth.
And it's not.
I know that's not the truth. I mean, for me, right, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong. I got pulled over one time, and most police officers are a lot younger than me, so I got pulled over by a couple of kids, I thought. And I was in the wrong. I had paid my taxes on my tag, but I did not have the new tag on it. I had the receipt, but in this state, that doesn't matter. So they pulled me over, and they walk up on me, and I'm like, young man, before we start our business, I just want you to know that I'm a concealed carry permit holder, and I know I don't have to do it, but if it make you feel better, you can hang on to it while we're talking. So I got out, and I let him have the weapon. And then they were just doing their thing, and then this kid, his partner comes up and says, I saw this on the internet the other day. I said, well, that's funny because I had it on the internet the other day on a video feed because I used to quite insanely believe that people like to watch a radio show, and he had seen it. So all of a sudden I'm sitting there and they were listening to my podcast in their car when they pulled me over.
Really?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
And then their partners came rolling up and they had their blue lights on too. So while they wrote my ticket, I posed in front of their car and we did a couple of photos.
Nice.
Well, it is nice, but the thing about it is that I don't think up to that point until they figured out who I was, I did not think I was giving up any rights simply by complying with them and letting them do their job.
Sure.
I was in the wrong. And it just bugs me nowadays that people get out there. And I mean, if it's dark, I'm throwing on the dome light, put my hands at 10 and 2. As soon as you walk up to my door, I'll say, hey, I have a gun on me. I just want to let you know.
Yeah.
Here's my permit. Don't worry. I'm going to be standing here and this steering wheel isn't going to go nowhere.
Yeah. And I think most of us are not going to, it's like, hey, appreciate the information and that's it. And then you move on with your business.
Yep.
But
Yep. Usually tell people the standard. Just don't reach for it, and we appreciate that.
Now, and let's address this one thing. I kind of think the percentage of people that are actually criminals in the United States is probably pretty low. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
So probably just based upon just the rule of statistics, I would have to imagine that where we have the bad boy rogue cop kind of thing, that is probably a very statistically low occurrence, isn't it?
Very much so.
Yes, very much so.
Very much so.
When somebody like that is identified and everything, does the system take care of him and he gets cashiered out of there? They try to rehabilitate him and give him a chance.
If they can catch it early enough, I think that I've seen it mostly. If you're in training and you're just not getting it and you're having a hard time getting over the hump, yeah. But if you're 10 years in and you're just a bad individual, it usually takes care of itself and you're no longer employed in this business.
Yeah, it's going to catch up to you at some point. And listen, I know that there's this misnomer out there about this big blue wall of silence or whatever, but I will tell you that no one hates a bad cop more than other cops, more than good cops, because any little thing, any little mistake that somebody makes or any bad decision somebody makes puts a light on the rest of us, and we have to carry on whatever it is that perception, because there's this one guy that did this and he made a decision as a human being. He used his free will and he made a horrible decision, and it had consequences to it, and it gets blown up in the media. All that comes back on the rest of us, and we have to carry that with us, and that's hard to do. So we don't want that. The job's already stressful enough. We don't need that on top of it. So yeah, no, it absolutely takes care of itself.
Street Warrior Radio Podcast. Go check it out. iTunes, Stitcher Radio, all the ways that you can find it. Street Warrior Radio Podcast. Guys, thanks for taking the time. I had to reschedule them because things happened and everything else, and I appreciate you guys taking the time to come on the show.
Oh, absolutely. We appreciate you.
Oh, absolutely. We thank you.
All right. And we'll do this again very soon. Coming up next.
Yes, sir.
From the creator of something called Mantis X, we're going to talk to a guy named Austin Allgaier. This is Lock and Load.
So that was our live radio interview with Bill Frady on Lock and Load Radio. We want to shout out to him. Bill, thank you so much for having us on the show. We really appreciated it. And with that, where to find us? You can go to streetwarriorradio.com. That's our website. You can listen or download all the episodes on there also. If you want it easier, if you're on an iPhone, you can download iTunes, specifically Apple Podcasts, and find us on there. We're also on Google Play, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, you name it, we're on it. We're all over the place. You can find us in pretty much any podcasting app. Just search Street Warrior Radio. We'll pop up, and hopefully all of our episodes will be there. There were some people that were having some issues with Google Play and not being able to see all the episodes. If you run across that, shoot me an email at info@streetwarriorradio.com. Let me know the issue so I can get in contact with them and get that worked out. Also, if you want to reach us, that email address right there, or the website, you can go to the Contact Us page and send us a message through there. Several of you have done so, and we appreciate it. Also, you can reach me directly by email at jc@streetwarriorradio.com. You can reach Bigbo at Bigbo, Bigbo, at streetwarriorradio.com. And you can also follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. On Facebook and Instagram, the handle is at Street Warrior Radio. On Twitter, it is at STRT, the word warrior, RDIO, or you can just simply search Street Warrior Radio Podcast in the search bar and we'll pop up. Also, if you want to follow me, my handle on Instagram is JC_SWR. I don't post a bunch, and most of it's just useless bullshit, but I do post, and if you're interested, you can follow me on there. You can also DM us directly on either the Street Warrior Radio pages, or you can shoot me a DM directly on my Instagram page. Also, still working on the storefront, getting that going. I wasn't really happy with our second round of t-shirts that we ordered. So I'm reworking some of that, but once that all gets worked out, eventually we'll be on there somewhere. I don't know. However, if in the meantime you're interested in any sort of merch, you can shoot us an email at any of the email addresses I've already listed, and we can do our best to hook you up. And with that, I want to give thanks to our armed forces, our men and women in uniform out there serving in the military. Thank you so much for what you do. Thank you for the sacrifices that you make. We appreciate it. We couldn't do this podcast. We couldn't live our lives. We couldn't do anything without what you do, defending us, defending freedom, defending democracy, defending this beautiful republic that we call home. Thank you so much for what you do. And to our first responders out there, our police, fire, paramedics, at all levels of government, thank you so much for what you do. Remember your oath. Go out there, be safe, do the right thing. And to the families of our military and first responders, thank you for what you do. Thank you for the sacrifices that you make. It is noted, it is appreciated, and we honor you. And to all the other people out there that make that world go round, thank you so much. To our fans, thank you very much. We truly appreciate you. You make this worth doing. The feedback that we get from you guys is just incredible, and we just can't. It's just beyond words. The how we feel about all of it. But at a very minimum, we can say thank you and continue to try to put out a great podcast for our listeners. And to everyone else, thank you. You guys make it happen. You make everything possible. You the Uber driver and the factory worker and the lawyer and the doctor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Y'all make life continue to churn on, and you make our service worth it. You make the sacrifices that are made by our first responders and our military personnel. You make that worth it. And with that, Street Warrior Radio is out of service.